Hi, I'm Mike Messier. Welcome to Messier Mantra. Our guest is CHRIS ESPER.
Part 3.
Part 3, filmmaker. And I just want to get right back into where we were. Hopefully people, can watch episode 2 especially, because we're talking about the process for your new short film called Please Punish Me.
Yep.
And by the time this interview comes out, maybe there'll be some way to see this film either in a film festival or online. But let's just go back to the process. So you've cast your actors, you've shown your crew and the actors some source inspirational material, Eyes Wide Shut, After Hours, Office Space, these other films that kind of put them in the headspace for what you're doing with Please Punish Me. And then you've gathered some funds. We talked about the crowdsourcing, the crowdfunding to get about $1,000 towards this movie. You've got your location. Take us, is there anything before we get on the actual set? Is there anything that comes before we get back onto the set?
No, I don't think so. I think, at that point we had our funds, we got our locations, got our props and costumes. Then it was just time to, we scheduled it, and now it was just time to get on the set and start shooting.
Now, the day of the first, and how many, you had 5 days to shoot?
5 days, yep.
So the day, what's going on in your mind the night before or the morning of? What are you dreaming about the day, of the shoot? Anything going on in your mind as the director, kind of the captain of the ship?
Yeah, well, for one thing, I confirm with every single person on the cast and crew, are you all set for tomorrow? Do you have any questions? Do you have any needs? Is there anything last minute that I should know about? I always double and triple check, make sure everybody's okay. Because as a director, you also want to take care of everybody, make sure that everyone's on the same page and they feel good about it. And any concerns, address it now, because on the day of, there's no room for error.
Right.
It has to be done, and it has to be done the right way. I'm thinking about everything. Like, my mind is in 8 different directions. But I look through the script numerous times. I look over my shot list and my storyboard, and that's also part of the process. Is I create a shot list and a storyboard. I give it to my cinematographer, my producer. We visit the locations. We look at where these potential shots can go. But the day before, I'm looking through all that stuff again, just reviewing and redoing it in my mind. I'm thinking, okay, this is what we're gonna do. This is how we're gonna do it. This is the shot I want, and I just kind of go over in my head just over and over, and I can't do anything. That's for me. I can't watch a movie in order to get that distraction. Like, I have to be in a zone.
Right.
I feel like an actor in a sense, where like I'm playing the role of director. So, I need my own mindset as well. So the day of and the day before, that's all I'm doing, and then we get to the set. And the first person that usually shows up the first people that show up are usually the crew.
Right.
Because I like to have them show up, set up the lights, set up the sound, and all that stuff, and then have the actors come at a later time. That way they're not waiting around for nothing.
Right.
Then they come about an hour or two early before we're ready to roll, get the makeup done. And in this case, we had Stephanie Plan, who's a very talented makeup artist, do the makeup on the film, and while they're doing makeup, they're going over lines. I'm talking to them as my assistant director is working with the crew to set up the set, whether it be moving a table, setting up lights, setting up the camera, setting up the dolly, etc. And so it's very, very intimate for me with the actors, and I try to step away from the crew side of things so I could just worry about just the actors.
Right.
At least that's what I try to do now. I think when we did Please Punish Me, obviously I'm still learning. I'm always learning.
Sure.
But at the time, I think I was more crew involved. I was, making sure that everything sounded good, everything looked good. So I was on every aspect, I think, that day. But then once everything is set up, I think about an hour or 2 hours later is when we're pretty much ready to shoot. That's the hard part, I think, is the setup process, because you want to stay on schedule, but you don't want to rush it. So that's when things really go through your head. You're thinking, all right, this needs to get done,
Sure.
But then once you start shooting, you just get into this mindset, and then you just start to relax, and things just start to take shape. The first take always tends to be a little clunky.
Sure.
Things happen. Oh, the boom is in the shot. We gotta do this again. Oh, the light stand's there. We got to move that.
Yeah.
But I think after about 1 or 2 takes, we were just like a well-oiled machine, and we just kept going.
A couple of things I want to jump in on your process, Chris, is I was very intrigued by what you were saying about at some point you were more of a technical director, kind of setting up the audio and the lights and all the cameras, which is great, the focus, lenses, everything, with your crew. And also, at a different time, maybe you start thinking, well, I got to really pay attention to these actors, too, because they're trying to feel their way into this or get their minds totally focused. And they've done the homework, because we talked about in the previous episode, you've prepped them, they've worked very hard on their characters. But even still, it's like a Major League Baseball hitter who's hit that ball 1,000 times in practice, but when they get to the stadium with all those fans and the Major League pitcher across from them, that's what it counts.
Oh, yeah.
So now you've got to talk to your actors, too, and make sure that they know what they're doing and they feel good about what they're doing.
Yeah, and it's true. And the one thing you don't want to do is you don't want to over-rehearse your actors.
Right.
Because there's also a point where you could overdo it to the point that it feels like a performance and it's not a character anymore.
Right.
You know, and so that's another thing to be careful of when you're directing, I think, is to, you want to rehearse them, but you don't want to over-rehearse them to the point that it's just they're just words.
Mechanical operation of some type of facsimile of a human condition rather than experience.
Of course.
And it's tough. I mean, we can go so many directions
in
the conversation. The difference between theater acting and film acting, and you know, for me, it was always kind of an interesting thing that in theater, the actors do have these monumental parts memorized, and then you would think all the rehearsal that goes into a theater show is more so usually than what goes into a film.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, and I think for actors, film is probably easier because you get that break where you could do it again. With theater, it's tremendous. I mean, I would love to direct a play. I just never really had the opportunity, but I imagine it would be a totally different beast to take on than film. Because with film, you know, you could edit.
Right.
You know, you could get
take two.
You could do another angle. Can't do that in theater.
No, with the theater, it's so live and organic with that audience feeding off the energy. Yeah. But of course, in theater, you're performing for the front row and the back row.
Oh yeah, yes. I mean, I'm probably wrong in saying this. I've been told I was wrong in saying this in the past, but in a way, you almost have to be broader in theater because you need to be able to also play to the nosebleed section in the back of the theater. But with film, there's a little more subtlety because the camera's right in your face.
I would agree with that. I mean, you know, we talked about Michael Caine earlier off camera, and he had a line, I think, in his instructional acting videos, which are epic and awesome. And those Michael Caine acting in film videos are on YouTube, or there's a book version. But I think he said that acting on theater is with a scalpel, and acting on film is with a laser.
Yeah, it's a good way to put it.
Yeah. So now I went off, but going back to the day of shoot. So you're working with your crew and you're working with your cast.
Yes.
And then you're doing take, and it seems at some point though, once you start rolling that camera, at some point, if you're lucky, it sounds like you have been, you start feeling a groove with everything.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and that's another thing too. I mean, I don't like to do all these multiple takes. I think it's just a waste of time and it's a waste of energy for the actors. And it goes back to the whole idea of over rehearsing. If you're going to a point where you're going like 10, 20, 30 takes, you know, you're just exhausting your actors and you're getting too much out of them, I think. I try to get 3 at the most. And that's how Clint Eastwood likes to work too. Like Clint Eastwood doesn't like to do a lot of takes, you know, maybe 3.
Right.
But I don't like to do 3 takes. I don't like to do more than 3 takes because 1, it's just we have a schedule to meet, and 2, you know, again, the actors. You got to think about the actors. You got to think about your crew. You got to think about the lunch hour, which is like coming up in you know, and like, what I like to do is I like to have the actors, especially for a comedy like this. I told, like, the first thing we shot was the scene where Bradley Rhodes plays Scotty Lee's boss, and he's telling the board members how great Scotty is. And this was a very funny scene. So I told Brad and all the actors when we did every scene, I said, okay, we're going to do the first take as scripted in this wide shot. And then we're going to do another one scripted. And after that, I want you to improvise. You know, like, give the actor a chance to do whatever they want.
Right.
You know, give them that chance to have room to play. Because, again, they're actors for a reason. You know, it's their job. You know, if I tell them what to do, then it's I'm not giving them their freedom. I'm just exercising my freedom, and that's not fair. You know.
One of my biggest experiences on a movie set was thanks to improv.
Yeah.
And I'll tell the story quickly as much as I can, but I was on a movie set doing extra work, Hope Springs, theatrical film release, Meryl Streep, Tommy Lee Jones,
Sure.
Steve Carell. And I was lucky enough, doing some shtickery to get on the set with Meryl Streep and Elizabeth Shue in this bar scene, North Stonington, Connecticut. And guess who starts improving? Elizabeth Shue. And
Right.
Elizabeth Shue, who has headline movies, Leaving Las Vegas,
Sure.
a nomination for Academy Award, Adventures in Babysitting, original
Karate Kid, yeah.
her own The Saint with Val Kilmer,
Sure.
her own TV show for a while. She had like a 5-line part in this movie, which is very unusual, I thought, for her to do that. And then she started improving. And maybe she wanted to get a little more action in the movie.
Yeah.
And then she's improving, and the director, I think it was David Frankel, that's great. For her improving. Long story short, they needed someone to take the comedic pratfall in this scene with her on Streep, and that turned out to be me.
Oh.
So the next thing you know, Chris, I'm doing this scene with Meryl Streep and Elizabeth Shue.
Yeah.
And it's through the wonderment of improv. And not even, Elizabeth Shue, thanks to her. So I find it interesting when you, as a director of these independent films that you're making so well, are talking about allowing the actors to do improv. And that's what struck with me, because I'm like, that's good, because...
No, actors, I think, should do improv, be it a comedy or a drama. But especially for a comedy, go for it, because there are moments that you may not even knew that you had, and it could ultimately it could be beneficial for the film. I mean, of course, improv can go too far. I did a web show a couple years ago where we had a situation where we had the actors improvise, but the scene went into a totally different direction, and it threw the story off course. And of course, we had to do another take.
Right.
But so you can only go so far with improv. But I mean, I say do it, because it benefits you as a director. It also benefits the actors in being able to create something new for the character. And Brad was great. He had just the right balance of goofiness, and also he gave a good performance. So I heavily encourage improvisation. I think it's a great tool.
Right. And now the morning is quickly going towards lunchtime.
Yep.
I'm just maybe putting my own thing in there, but stomachs started grumbling.
Oh, yeah.
People started yawning.
Yep.
Coffee is brewing, hopefully, somewhere, and
yes.
some food. So what is, and this is just nuts and bolts stuff, but what is lunch break like? What is the break like?
I think we gave at least 15 to 30-minute lunch break.
Okay.
Or sometimes a little longer, depends on the day. But we would, I got sandwiches the night before from a local deli.
Right.
And also a lot of snacks, coffee, just box of Joe from Dunkin' Donuts, and just make sure that everyone's taken care of. And we take a few minutes, and there's really no, I guess mantra is a good word for it,
right.
to like the whole lunch break. But I mean, what I try to do is I try not to talk too much about the movie and just let loose and just talk about something else, maybe another movie that's coming out, or just a totally different subject, and just be loose.
Yeah.
Like that. Now it's our time. We don't have to work. We can laugh. Not that we can't laugh when we work, but we don't have to be very serious. Like we could have a good time, and then the hard part is getting back into it after we had such
definitely.
a break. Yeah, and it's kind of like the beginning of the day. You kind of have to get back into the groove again, but once you get back into that groove, it's pretty much smooth sailing for the rest of the way.
Okay, so so after lunch, all things being on good terms, you get through the rest of the day, and on a typical, there is no typical, but
there is no typical.
Maybe a 9, 10, 11-hour day type of thing you're looking at. So
yeah,
and then at the end of the day, you call it, you do that martini shot thing. Do you do that? Explain what that is for the people that don't know.
Sure. Martini shot basically means that it's the last shot of the day, and so it could be, and it's good because it's relaxing. It's typically it's very easy because, for me, I usually do my insert shots like close-ups of like hands or objects or whatever. We usually do that last.
Right.
And so, it's easy. People can finally relax, and they could talk. So Yeah, so I mean, at that point, it's just getting your last-minute stuff. You double-check, triple-check your shot list to say, all right, what am I missing?
Right.
Okay, we're not missing anything. All right, it's a wrap for today.
Right.
And then we got to clean up and go home, and next day do all over again.
Right. And sometimes you'll, and just trying to get this across to the audience, I mean, I know, sometimes you'll do a location where you have best case scenario, you're coming back the very next day, and maybe you can leave some stuff there.
Oh, yeah. No, that's great if you could do that. If you're coming back to the same location, you get to leave your stuff set up, your lights, your camera. Yeah, that's great.
That saves you hours, and people get to sleep a little bit more.
Yeah, absolutely.
But if not, then you got to strike everything.
Strike it, do it again.
Yeah. It's crazy.
It is crazy. It really is. Yeah.
So now you basically take that process, and in this case, you repeat that. You do that 5 times for your whole shooting of Please Punish Me. And in that course of the 5 days, kind of looking at it as an overview,
sure.
What type of problems, I guess is the lack of a better word, or situations could arise that requires your attention?
I think the biggest thing that, the biggest issue happened was, well, the weather. That was the biggest one, because we had 2 exteriors we had to shoot, and my goodness, it was freezing
right.
for one thing, so we had to be quick. But the problem is there are times when we probably went too quick,
right.
to the point where it may have showed in the footage or in the sound or what have you. So, I mean, those are things I kind of regret, was that putting my cast and crew in those kind of situations, but also not thinking ahead of time as to, okay, the weather's going to be like this. We have to have a plan B.
Right.
And I think that's important to have a plan B. And in this case, I didn't. So it was kind of, all right, plan A or nothing.
Right.
But you live and learn.
You do, yeah. And so then you've done this process, and you've, at the end of these 5 days, you have your movie shot.
Yes.
And some folks, once again, that aren't, new, they're maybe new to this or just curious. Once a movie is shot, it doesn't mean it's over.
Oh, no, far from it.
Right. Someone's going to edit this.
Yeah, no, it's only 50% of the process.
Right.
You still have to edit it. You got to do the sound mix, the color grading. Yeah, but first I need a break.
Right.
so
decompress
lots of sleeping. Yeah. So,
right.
But then when the editing process came, I went and I found my good friend Felipe Jorge.
Yep.
Who is a great documentary filmmaker. His documentary, The Comic Book Palace, won a ton of awards and played well in the festival circuit. So he edited my film, and it's a lot like writing a script. He would do his first cut. He would send it to me, and I would say to him, all right, cut this shot out, let's take this out, and then he would go about doing his thing. Then there were times I wanted stuff to be longer,
right?
And then Phil would say to me, Chris, you don't need this. You don't need this scene. You don't need that scene. Cut the stuff out.
Right.
And it was great because I used to edit my stuff on my own, but then I figured having somebody else with another perspective to tell me this isn't working, this works but this doesn't, etc. That's great for me because I have someone who cares about my film enough to tell me I want to give you the best I could give you, because I've edited films for people where they wanted everything.
Right.
And cutting a syllable was sacrilege.
Right.
And I said, no, I got to be open to new ideas. And so I was thankful for somebody like Phil to tell me, Chris, this doesn't work. Get rid of it. And the original script was 17 pages, and we got it down to a 13-minute movie. And for those that don't know, one page of script is 1 minute of screen time. So we would have had close to a 20-minute film with credits, and it's unnecessary for a comedy.
Right.
Especially when you also got to think about the film festival circuit. When you submit a film to the festival circuit, it's very hard to even get into a festival.
Right.
So you want to make sure it's tight and concise. Like for one thing, don't have opening credits in a short film, because it's just a waste of time. And who knows who all these names are? Right. It's not a feature film. So you just want to jump right into it. So every little moment counts. So, and that's what editing this film taught me a lot about, because we originally did have opening credits, but then when we started getting a couple of rejections, we cut the credits out, and now it's gotten more acceptances because of that. Nice. So those little changes, they really do help.
When you mentioned your relationship with your editor, is a term I came up with recently when working with an editor, and I said, the editor, not the editor.
That's good. I
like that.
Yeah,
not the editor. And as a director myself and a writer, a lot of times I do want to be the editor. I'm like, you know what? Put this thing in.
No, it's true, because you have that one shot that took you an hour to get.
Right.
And that one shot is so precious to you, but it's one of those things you got to kill your darlings.
Right.
And, you got to focus on just the story.
That kill the darlings line has been around for a while. That also means, like, as a writer or a cinematographer or anybody,
of course,
we fall in love with these little techniques, or we took this crane shot,
or these lines of dialogue.
Right,
right.
right.
And this just happened to me recently too. I submitted the short screenplay to a production company, and they're thinking about producing it with me directing. But they said, "Can you cut the script down a little bit?" And it's funny because I really didn't think it was. I thought it was too short already.
Right.
But it's interesting because when you think things are at a good length, they could actually be shorter.
Right.
So I mean, it's good having that outside perspective to tell you that feedback. So yeah, so Phil was great and very instrumental in doing that. There was also another scene we ended up not shooting because as Phil and I looked at the script, we discovered, oh, we don't need to shoot this scene, but we have everything that we need. And it was just repetitive. And it was too much exposition. And we figured, let's save that exposition for the end of the film when he's talking to her. So Phil was very good at that. He cut some jokes that fell flat, and it just made it for a much more concise movie. And so I think we did about, I think we edited for about a year on that film because there were just, well, for one thing, there were some technical problems with some of the sound that we had to take care of.
Yep.
And then, so it took a while to edit because Phil was doing the coloring, the sound mixing, and the actual video editing.
Right.
That's not even thinking about music. Music was a whole nother stage. Yeah. And for music, I went to someone who I never worked with, Stephen Cafrio, who is a great, talented composer. He did David Graziano's film, The Actor, which you co-wrote.
Yes. No, I wrote it.
Well, you wrote it. Yeah, thank you.
I co-directed with Skip Shea.
You co-directed. Okay, sorry.
Yeah.
But yeah, and Steve was great. I had him watch After Hours. Like I had Phil also watch After Hours and all these movies. I said, listen to these scores. And I told him, listen to the score of this film. Try to do something like that.
Right.
And so he did, but he put his own spin on it. And the one thing I told him was, I told him I don't want a funny score. Give me a straight score because the same idea that, as I mentioned in the last episode, that comedy should be done in as straight lace as possible, as if you're doing a drama. You start to have funny music, it throws the whole thing off.
Yeah, you don't want banana peel special audio effects.
Yeah, exactly. So he gave me a really beautiful piano score for the credits and for when they're having their conversation, because that was the moment where things calm down and the characters start to get to know each other and they build that connection. So Steve was great in doing that. And then he also gave me a very kind of creepy score for when he first walks into the palace.
Yep.
And it kind of set the tone. Yeah, it's a bit over the top. I mean, that was kind of the idea. So we kind of tread that fine line of being goofy but also being quite serious. So, I mean, it was fun to play with, all these different directions.
For those that may have just tuned in, we're talking about your film, Please Punish Me. They can see it April 23rd at the historic Columbus Theater in Providence. And by the time this interview comes out, maybe you'll have some type of online platform for them to watch it as well. So now the film is finished.
Yes.
Let's move forward. We got 4 minutes left. We're just tearing through these interviews.
Yeah, let's do it.
You've got to submit this to film festivals. And are you using, I would use Film Freeway at this point.
Yeah, I use Film Freeway. That's my go-to.
Right.
And I love Film Freeway because it's easy to use, user-friendly. I also have used no entry fee festivals, which is great for if you don't have money to submit to festivals.
Right.
You just submit to all these free ones, and there's also AirNet festivals such as the Online Film Festival, Short of the Week, and it's a tough process because you spend all this money, and 9 times out of 10 you're going to hear no.
Right.
And that's a whole other subject in the festival circuit because every festival has a certain niche that they have to meet.
Right.
Your film may be too long, or it's a different theme that they want. So, and it's hard not to take it personal, but at the same time, you can't. The last thing you want to do is email the festival back with this angry email. That is the last thing you want to do because, think about it. They have to watch thousands and thousands of films.
Right.
They can't possibly fit everything.
Right. And they might have political ramifications. The nephew of the film festival head honcho might have made their little film or something.
And another thing to remember, too, is just because the festival rejects your film, it doesn't mean that they didn't like it. It just means it just wasn't for them for whatever reason. And oftentimes, I'll even ask the festival for feedback. I'll say, can you tell me why my film didn't get in? And 9 times out of 10, I was told, they liked the film. They just couldn't fit it for whatever reason.
There's just time constraints.
But I mean, in the end, we got into 8 festivals. So I mean, it was yeah. I'm proud of it.
You should be. Great. And this is all. So we got 3 minutes left. But basically, you know, making these short films, getting them out there into the film festivals, whether it's in Providence or throughout the world, online festivals. Is it to build a resume, build a CV, so to speak, as a working filmmaker? Is that your goal, or is there other thoughts?
Oh, sure, it's that, but it's also it's more importantly to get the film seen,
right? Because
short films, there is no distribution, at least none that I know of anyway,
right?
And when there is, you don't make any money out of it. I mean, that shouldn't be why you make a short film. A short film should be a career builder. I mean, if you can make some money, great. But I mean, you can't get into it to make money. You have to get into it because you want to build up your career of yourself and your actors and your crew to hopefully lead to that feature film that you want to make.
And that's what we were saying towards the end of episode 2, you know, and I kind of went off on a little tangent, but trying to show people that some of this stuff is beyond the dollars immediately.
Yeah.
Of course, we all want to make a living with our work.
Yeah.
Of course, but at the same time, you have to take the hit, pay your dues,
put
that volunteer time in, and make a path for yourself.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. Totally agree.
What's a mantra we can share at the end of this episode? Because we've talked about so much, but is there something you want the audience, if they've watched this interview, the previous Chris Esper interviews on Messier Mantra, they're like, hey, now I'm getting the bug. Now I'm getting jonesed up. I want to go out there and tackle this process, as tough as it is.
Yeah.
What's some words of wisdom you'd have for that person out there?
Nobody's waiting for you. I mean, no one's going to give you permission. You can only give yourself permission to go out and make a film. There's no excuse anymore. People make excuses all the time. I don't have a camera. I don't have money. I don't have this. I don't have that. I don't live in LA. That stuff doesn't matter. The camera's right on your phone. The camera is. Tangerine was filmed on an iPhone. I mean, it doesn't matter. The more important thing is that you have a good story and you got a good people to work with, and there's no excuse. Just go out, pick up the camera, and go shoot.
Just to wrap up, people can even take advantage of the public access stations in their town, their community.
It's true.
And how that works is real quick. The government in the 80s, when the cable companies were digging up the land, to put in the cables for cable TV, the government, to their credit, stepped in and said, well, you have to give back to the communities a little bit if you're going to tear up the ground and the sidewalk.
Sure.
You have to provide these public access studios. So for anyone watching out there, if they are inspired by our chat here on Messier Mantra, call your local cable access community station and get in touch with the good people there and see if they can give you some training and some studio time and
absolutely
rent the cameras or whatever. So, okay, we've just got a few seconds. Chris, anything you want to say real quick?
Yeah, I mean, right now I run a video blog on my YouTube page called The Filmmaker's Journey, and I give the same advice I just talked about, and that series is now being turned into a book that I just finished writing of the same name, and it's going to be published later this year. And right now it's in the hands of an editor, and it gives all the same advice, but I tell all my success and my failures throughout the entire book. And it's quite short, only at 50 pages, but I mean, there's a lot of information there, and hopefully it not only helps other filmmakers who are starting, but also helps myself in building more of a name. So it's very exciting.
The Filmmaker's Journey, Chris Esper. Thanks for watching the Messier Mantra. We'll see you next time.